Douglas, by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. Say it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, Patriots, and welcome to another edition of the Douglas Ducote Show. You had many places you could be tonight, but you chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. Let me ask you a question. Do you know exactly where your tax dollars are going? Most of you do not. Most of you can name a few federal programs, but do you know all the federal programs that are out there that you're paying for? You don't. In fact, I'd be willing to bet you that there is not a single living person on planet Earth that could name all these programs. There are a few thousand of them, and that's where your tax dollars go, to fund all these programs. Now, I also don't believe that there would be a single Democrat, liberal, Republican, or conservative that doesn't understand what fraud, waste, and abuse is. For instance, when the government comes up with a program and they implement it and money goes into it, sometimes those programs get misused, and the people in charge of them spend the money on things that they shouldn't. Or many other type things can happen around the programs and the money issues that cause serious problems. If not addressed, that's where fraud, waste, and abuse comes in. The best way to tackle that in government is for the members that we elect to go up to Congress and represent us, that are supposed to be looking out for our money, to look at these programs and determine, hey, this program that we put in place 5 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, is still doing what it was meant to do: help the American people in the United States of America. Looking into those programs to make sure that they're doing what they're set up to do should be a priority of our government. That's what we sent them to do: represent us and represent our money. So, do you know of any Democrat or Republican that would be against an oversight of our government programs? I don't. And I used to be a Democrat. I don't know a single person, American, that pays tax dollars or that's retired that would say, I don't care. Do whatever they want with my money. I gave it to them. I respect them to use it the way it's supposed to be used. I believe that they will look out for my best interest. No, because we're all smart enough to know how our government spends our money and how wasteful they can be with certain programs. Now, what am I talking about? And why am I talking about this? Well, because it's very, very important, number one. But number two, it goes to the heart of the question, or not question, I'm sorry, the heart of the statement that Joe Biden, the Democrats, and the liberal media keeps putting out there, spinning, so to speak. And that's that Republicans want to take away Social Security benefits and Medicare, Medicaid. Republicans want to strip those rights from the American people. You've heard them say it. That's said every day by them, over and over and over again. And not too many people step in and question them, other than say that you don't know of any Republican that wants to take away Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and strip that of them. You do care if your money's going to illegal aliens or people that are doing things bad against our country. So why do the Democrats keep saying this? Just the other night, during the State of the Union address, Joe Biden said Republicans want to take away your Social Security, along with many other things he said that was absolutely not true, such as how we want to ban all abortions in America, and just, it's a list of crap, and I've already shared that with you. But this whole thing about Social Security needs to stop. Facts matter. And we're going to get to the root of that right now. You have heard Joe Biden, even during the State of the Union address, as well as many, many other Democrats, say that Republicans want to end or take away Social Security and Medicaid. And you may wonder where in the hell they're getting that notion from, because no Republican is on record saying they support such a thing. Now, if you know of a Republican that has said they want to strip away your rights to Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid, let me know. Let me know in the comments below. I'll reach out to them and bring them on the show if they come on. Or we will go out and find out exactly what they said that made you interpret it that way. Well, I'm going to explain it to you, exactly where they're getting this from. But in doing so, I'm also going to drop a big bombshell on you. One that the Democrats and Joe Biden do not want you to know. In fact, they wish they could erase this from history, because it goes against the lie that they're spinning, the lie that they're telling about Republicans and Social Security. Republican Rick Scott of Florida suggested a plan that would sunset all federal programs to be reevaluated every 4 years or so. That's what we were just talking about, right? Every few years, members of Congress go in and look at all these programs to make damn sure they're being used the way they're supposed to be. Fix fraud, waste, and abuse within them, or get rid of a program that, for instance, is not doing what it was designed to do anymore. He never once mentioned Social Security or Medicare. But both of those happen to be what? Federal programs. What he proposed was that each program be evaluated every 4 years to see which ones are basically fraud, waste, and abuse by the federal government, and therefore eliminate it if found and be able to save taxpayer money. Just look at these programs. There's a few thousand of them. Some of them have been in place for years. Who doesn't want to do that, right? Well, that's exactly where Joe Biden and the Democrats get their no merit talking point. So here's the part that Joe and the Democrats don't want you to know. When Joe Biden was a congressman, which is before he was president, which was before he was vice president, when he was a member of Congress, he himself put forward the exact same suggestion that Rick Scott has done. to sunset all federal programs every 4 years for the Congress to do their job to make sure that these programs are going to the right purposes, the money is being spent properly. Joe Biden, the President of the United States, put forward as a congressman the exact same program that Rick Scott is putting forward, except they're spinning it to make you believe, if you're too dumb to do your own homework, or you just believe what the Democrats say, that we want to strip away Social Security and Medicaid. Because that's what they're using. That's where they get these talking points from. That is the definition of hypocrisy. Hypocrisy 101. While Biden was in the upper chamber of Commerce, the now president put forward a bill requiring all federal programs to sunset after 4 years. When pushing his bill as a senator, Biden said it requires every program to be looked at freshly at least once every 4 years. Well, now you know the rest of the story. Anytime a Democrat or a liberal mentions to you, or you hear them talking about Republicans want to take away Social Security, they want to strip away benefits, you have factual information to come back at them and explain to them that's not true. Put them on the spot. Tell them to show you where this is coming from. And I just did. And to prove my point, right now, Joe Biden and the Democrats are doubling down on this whole thing with Rick Scott and trying to twist his words and what he said and get into his head and come up with things that they believe he meant that he didn't say. He just proposed the exact same thing that Joe Biden proposed when he was a member of Congress. And that is a fact. Republicans are not wanting to strip away Social Security and any Medicare or Medicaid. But when it comes to Medicare and Medicaid, we would like to make damn sure that people using those benefits and all benefits in our government are using them legitimately and not using them as a crutch to sit on their ass and not work, or the whole fraud, waste, and abuse thing that happens to run rampant throughout our country. I hope everybody understands what I just said, because we got to stop these Democrats and just stop them, period. Putting out false information. I mean, there's enough things to talk about Republicans that have done some stupid shit and said some stupid shit that's legit. Why make up stuff that's not true? The same thing goes for Democrats. There's tons of things that they say and do that's just bullshit. We don't need to make up things to prove our point, especially if the point can't be proven in what the person is saying. In this case, that is the case. Every now and then, a Democrat will open their eyes and realize there is a problem, and what Republicans are saying is actually correct and not a conspiracy theory. And of all people to open their eyes and realize this, I was absolutely flabbergasted when I saw this. It was a shock to see this Democrat, this liberal Democrat, actually come out and finally admit the Republicans and conservatives were right all along. Former liberal Democrat New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said today that it was a mistake for President Biden to open the border without first having a plan to handle the massive influx of illegal immigrants and migrants into America. You can't get more liberal than that, son of a bitch. Trust me. During his weekly podcast today, Cuomo argued that you can't change a policy unless you have a program in place to manage the change. It was a mistake for President Biden to open the border without having a plan to handle the tremendous flow of people, he said. Politicians make promises in campaigns. That's what they do. But government officials, professionals need to understand the consequences of enacting those promises. The southern states were right that opening the border created a tremendous hardship for them to handle, he continued. They were right that the federal government was not prepared. He goes on to say, but they were wrong in using migrants as political pawns and shipping them all around the country, such as what Florida is doing now and what Texas is doing, shipping them up to places like New York or Delaware or Washington, D.C., where liberals and Democrats don't want to say there's a problem. Well, here's a few hundred busloads of them. There's no problem, then you deal with it. The Democrat who resigned in disgrace in 2021 aimed multiple scandals involving sexual harassment and nursing home deaths, offered praise for Biden's new immigration policy, announced last month that expands the humanitarian parole program for Venezuelan nationals to include those from Haiti, Cuba, and Nicaragua, which in combined with an expansion of Title 42 expelling. The administration also announced an increased use of an alternative removal authority, expected removal to remove those who do not claim asylum and who cannot expel under Title 42. And the administration will triple refugee resettlements for Latin American and Caribbean countries, setting a goal of up to 20,000 refugees for fiscal year 2023 and fiscal year 2024. Cuomo said today that the new approach could work because the influence of migrants slowly, only when people hear the United States is curbing immigration. People don't embark on these difficult journeys without factoring in the likelihood of success. Cuomo also criticized his successor, Democrat Governor Kathy Hochul, for being slow to assist New York with the tens of thousands of migrants who are being flooded in there. First of all, New York City should have never accepted responsibility for its own, Cuomo said. In my opinion, the mayor should have said that New York State needs to handle the problem. Yes, New York City is a sanctuary city, but New York State is a sanctuary state. It's a state problem. State officials and legislators all proclaim they support immigration, he added. So let them now accept the responsibility. Talk the talk, now walk the walk. House them in your neighborhoods. More than 43,000 illegal aliens have entered New York City in the past year, with 28,400 currently living in dozens of hotels, relief centers, and the Brooklyn Cruise Terminal, according to the New York Post. We've been trying to tell you. Nobody wants to listen. Democrat Representative Ilhan Omar, campaign cash to consultants fell by millions of dollars after she removed her husband's firm from her payroll, being reported tonight on Fox News Digital. Review of the federal filings found the Minnesota lawmaker dished out millions of dollars from her campaign's coffers to the E Street Group, a political consulting firm that's co-owned by her husband, Tim Marinick, during the 2020 election cycle. His group had raked in half of Omar's total expenditures, making it the committee's largest vendor during that election. But after facing increased scrutiny over the payments, Omar rapidly changed course from her once defiant stay and cut off the cash flow to the E Group shortly before the switch into the 2022 cycle. Well, maybe possibly because it was illegal. And she was worried about the FBI looking into it because so many Republicans and conservatives were screaming at the top of their freaking heads, look into this. She's doing it right in front of our own eyes. Why is the Justice Department not getting involved? And when there are investigators involved, why does it get shut down? Well, it's all about the change now that Republicans have subpoena power and control of the House. Now her campaign pays far less for the services to various other firms, calling into question the high nature of the E Street Group's past charges. Following her husband's firm's removal, Omar's expenses towards similar services fell by around $2 million, according to a review of Federal Election Commission filings. It's all there for you to go look at yourself. Omar's committee previously paid the E Street Group nearly $3 million for its work, including advertisements across multiple platforms, direct mail, video production, editing, fundraising, consultants, and research, among other services. Let me remind you again, it's her husband's company. But during the 2022 election cycle, Omar's campaign only doled out $1 million to a handful of Washington, D.C., Minnesota, and California-based firms for those same services. A search of those records showed. One of the groups that picked up the fundraising slack was Barnett Strategies, LLC. It is owned by Rachel Barnett, who happens to be a former director of the E Street Group, her husband's company. Are you following the dots here? Business records show that Barnett registered the company 2 months after Omar's final check went to her husband's firm. However, Barnett Strategies has received far less cash, $100,000, than the E Street Group for its previous share of the campaign's fundraising endeavors, $300,000. And after Omar axed her husband's firm from the campaign's payroll, its total percentages towards the same services also drastically plummeted. In 2020, the E Street Group pulled in around 50% of the campaign's $5.7 million in distributions. In 2022, the other companies performing those same services took in around 30% of the campaign's $3.2 million in total expenditures, the records show. The payments, meanwhile, had also plunged when Omar faced her most possible loss to a Democrat opponent since running for Congress. The outspoken squad member narrowly won the 2022 Democrat primary by just 2,436 votes over her challenger, Democrat Don Samuels. Just 2 years prior, when the E Street Group was raking in cash, Omar faced no real threat and easily won the Democrat primary, defeating her nearest opponent by 35,011 votes. Omar has easily cruised to victory in Minnesota's heavily Democrat 5th congressional district during her general elections, gathering at least 143,000 more votes than her opponent since 2018. And this, my friends, is one of the many reasons Omar needs to be investigated heavily, not only by the House of Representatives, but the FBI, Department of Justice. But I think it will only go as far as the House, because the FBI and the Department of Justice, as we all know, is a two-tier justice system. The Department of Justice, speaking of, is firing back at House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan after Attorney General Merrick Garland and FBI Director Christopher Wray were subpoenaed by the House Judiciary Committee, saying that issuing subpoenas is premature. This is not about your sexual performance in bed, by the way. This is about the two-tier justice system, you idiots. Last week, Jordan subpoenaed Wray, compelling him to turn over documents and communications related to the FBI's misuse of federal, criminal, and counterterrorism resources to target parents at school board meetings. Jordan also subpoenaed Garland and Educational Secretary Manuel Cardona for documents related to the same matter. The subpoena compelled Wray to turn over documents to the committee by 9 a.m. Eastern Time on March 1st. It also demanded documents related to the Justice Department's task force that focused on identifying school board threats and the FBI's role as a member of that task force. But in a response letter to Jordan, the Department of Justice called the subpoena premature, as it has offered to engage with the committee verbally only. We remain ready to discuss next steps for the department to address your informational needs while also respecting executive branch issues, wrote Carlos Felipe Urruti, Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Legislative Affairs. Well, that's a nameful. We have offered to engage with the committee and provide information voluntarily, so a subpoena is premature. Yet, it was not premature when Democrats held the subpoena power, was it? Nope, not at all. We are committed to working in good faith to respond to your request and remain ready to discuss your informational needs and priorities for review and publications of these documents. As Director Wray and other FBI officials have stated clearly on numerous occasions before Congress and elsewhere, the FBI has never been in the business of investigating speech or policing speech at school board meetings or anywhere else, and we never will be. Then why are you not releasing the documents that Jim Jordan is asking for? If you have nothing to hide, let them see. So we know it's factual that that's a lie. Blatant lie. We've seen the paper trail. We've seen the hearings that have happened in the past and how they were shut down. We've seen the actual letters that were sent to the Biden administration and the Department of Justice to address this. It's been leaked. We've seen it. We know what the FBI was doing. The FBI said, our focus is and always will be on protecting people from violence and threats of violence. We are fully committed to preserving and protecting First Amendment rights, including the right to free speech. Bullshit. Jordan's office said today regarding the letter, Department of Justice response is completely inaccurate, flawed, and ignores the last 2 years' requests from this committee. And why didn't the FBI and Department of Justice respond to the committee? Because it was Republicans asking for it with a Democrat-led House. Therefore, fuck you, Republicans. We're not giving you shit. That's changed now, hasn't it? We expect full compliance with the subpoenas, continued Russell Dye, spokesman for Jordan. Jordan has already formally launched a number of high-level investigations in his first month as committee chairman and established a new judiciary subcommittee, the Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government, which held its first hearing today. The following is from the chairwoman of the RNC, Rhonda McDaniel, and it's a very good, put together, well-read statement. Based on the State of the Union address, Joe Biden must be living in a different reality than the Americans he claims to represent. Here's the truth. This country is hurting, and it's because Biden has been abject failure as president. No amount of spin can conceal the facts. Biden's failed leadership, Americans are poorer and less safe. Our southern border is wide open, and deadly drugs are pouring into our communities. Our children are still suffering the devastating effects of Democrat-led school lockdowns. All of these crises have erupted under Biden's watch, but he has no interest in fixing them. Instead, he used his time in the people's house to lie to the American people. Biden tried to paint a rosy picture of the economy, but Americans from coast to coast see right through his dishonesty. According to a new ABC News poll, a record number of people say they are financially worse off under Biden. And according to a recent CBS News poll, 76% of Americans are concerned about inflation, and 61% of Americans rate the economy as bad. That's from liberal rags, my friends. It is important to remember that liberal economists, some of whom worked in the Obama White House, pointed to Biden's $1.9 trillion in reckless spending as a key cause of the inflation we're experiencing over the past 2 years. The numbers don't lie. Since Biden took office, real wages, incomes, and savings are all down across the board. Americans have lost $9,300 on average paying for increased cost of living since Biden took office. Biden's economy is leaving folks behind, and no canned applause line can ease the pain that families are feeling on a daily basis. Biden briefly mentioned the southern border, but conveniently left out that we don't really have one under his failed leadership. Since Biden took office and threw the border wide open, nearly 6 million illegal aliens have crossed into America. This chaos creates ideal conditions for cartels to profit, and they're doing so by pouring deadly fentanyl, more than enough to kill the entire population of our country in 2022 alone in our communities. Every state is a border state when you don't have a border. There's no question it makes us less safe, but it's even bigger than that. A self-respected nation enforces basic border security. Biden refuses to do so, and his refusal to support our Border Patrol agent shows that he cares more about appeasing the far left than he does our nation's safety and integrity. This was Biden's entire strategy Tuesday night during his State of the Union address. When it comes to crises that have occurred on his watch, he either ignores them completely or misrepresents the situation. He mentioned COVID-19, but failed to mention that our kids are suffering devastating long-term effects from Democrat-led school lockdowns that this administration worked with far-left teacher unions to uphold. He mentioned gas prices, but failed to mention that gas has been more expensive every day under his leadership than it was before he took office. He mentioned China, but refused to explain why he let their surveillance balloon cross across our country without lifting a finger until it was out of the country and he shot it down over the water. He refuses to hold the communist regime accountable for unleashing COVID-19 on the world, much less the balloon. And of course, we all know his son's dealings with China. It's hard to describe how insulting it is for a president to brag about changes in inflation and gas prices after destroying our energy independence and putting families through the ringer just to make ends meet. It's even harder to understand why Biden's response to 2 years of drained savings accounts is to purpose billions in new taxes. The president does not respect the American people enough to apologize for his failures and doesn't think they're smart enough to see through his cheap political spin. He will receive a jarring wake-up call in 2024. Let's all pray. By contrast, responses from Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Arizona Representative Juan Casanemi were honest, direct, and focused on solutions. It's clear that unlike Biden, Governor Sanders understands that America is hurting. Where Biden and Democrats often failed policies, spin, and outright dishonesty, Republicans are offering a stronger economy, safe communities, and a generation of children protecting from culture indoctrination by the far left. We are the party of freedom, prosperity, security, and the American dream. That spirit came through in every word of our response to Biden's failed speech. It's why we won the House in 2022. It's why we'll win the Senate in 2024. And it's why Joe Biden will be a one-term president. Now, very good read, very good statement. I'm still on record saying, and I'll say it again now, that's got no reason. That's what if he is still around come presidential election and he does run, I do believe he'll be defeated, but I don't think he will make it that far because I do believe the Democrats are going to remove him because of his mental state. And I'm not making fun of that. It's a mental illness, whether it's dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever's happening to him. You've all seen it. We've all seen it. It's actually elder abuse to continue to let this guy go and speak in front of the nation and ramble about shit that just doesn't make any sense. Without the teleprompter, he's fucked. Literally. He can't do it. House Oversight Committee Republicans today made a formal request for Hunter Biden to turn over information and records related to his foreign business dealings. Chairman James Comer also sent requests to President Biden's brother, James Biden, and Hunter's business partner, Eric Swelron, for records as Republicans probe whether members of the Biden family leveraged Joe Biden's position as vice president to sell access around the world. President Biden is compromised by deals with foreign adversaries, and they are impacted by decision-making. This is a threat to national security, Comer said. The American people deserve transparency and accountability about the Biden's family influence peddling. No different than the Democrat-ran House did with Donald Trump. The Oversight Committee is committed to exposing the waste, fraud, and abuse that has taken place at the highest levels of government. Hunter Biden, James Biden, and their business dealings associates' documents, records, and communications are critical to this investigation. Hunter Biden and the others were given until February 22nd, the deadline to respond, before Republicans will consider issuing subpoenas. Hunter Biden's counsel, Abe Laurel, responded to the request in a letter today, writing that the committee lacks the legitimate legislative purpose in seeking these documents. First off, I hope the board is looking at that. I really do. That's your job, to keep lawyers in check. Moving on, as your letter is a sweeping attempt to collect and expansive array of documents and communications from President Biden and his family, a right to explain that the Committee on Oversight and Accountability lacks a legitimate legislative purpose and oversight based from requests such as records from Mr. Biden, who is a private citizen, by the way, they wrote. So was Donald Trump when you impeached him the second time in the House. I mean, it's batshit crazy to listen to what comes out of their mouths. Rather than engage in back and forth letter writing campaigns or any formal proceedings, I would offer to sit with you and your staff, including the ranking members and his staff, to see whether Mr. Biden has information that may inform some legitimate legislative purpose and be helpful to the committee. God dog it. It's hard to even read that without laughing. That's an attorney in America. Got it, a person that went to college, got a degree in law, passed the bar, is basically saying that Congress doesn't have the oversight to investigate wrongdoings. Hello? How in the hell did you get through school? I hope that you will engage in this effort, the attorney said. Former Twitter executives testified to the Oversight Committee yesterday about the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story on Twitter. The New York Post reporting in that story first called attention to the Biden's business dealings with the Ukrainian gas company Burisma, which prompted the GOP allegations of corruption against the Bidens. The president has previously denied any involvement in his son's business dealings, which of course now we know is a lie. Because Hunter Biden's associates that were working with him on all these deals with China and with Ukraine have now come forward as whistleblowers, not only sharing emails that were back and forth that showed that Joe Biden was in on this, but pictures of them all meeting with Joe Biden to discuss this stuff. And yet he still continues to lie, and the White House still continues to say he knew nothing about it. And of course, then with Hunter Biden's laptop, even more has come out. Emails as well as photographs of Biden meeting with the same people that he claims he knew nothing about. Comer accused Twitter of running a coordinated campaign by social media companies, mainstream news, and intelligence communities to suppress the existence of the Hunter Biden laptop story. Former Twitter head of trust and safety, Yoel Roth, testified that Twitter had made a mistake in doing so. Because, why? It was all true. The laptop story was all true. There's no lie there. It's fact. Hunter Biden was selling access to his dad, Joe Biden, when Joe was vice president, for money. Now we need the House to do their investigation to not only prove that fact to the American people, but hopefully force the Department of Justice and the FBI to take some kind of action on it, which of course we're not going to do until Republicans have the House and Senate. But regardless, we need to continue pressing forward, exposing these outright lies. One of my favorite members in Congress, because she's always good for a laugh just listening to her talk. If you don't laugh listening to her talk, then you have zero sense of humor. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, aka AOC, implied yesterday that racism lies behind this week's push by Republicans to end voting rights for non-citizens in the capital of Washington, D.C. House lawmakers debated a resolution that would disapprove of a D.C. Council law allowing non-citizens and illegal immigrants to vote in the city. Several Democrats took to the floor to argue that Republicans are looking to micromanage the city And AOC went further by saying that the GOP seems to be targeting minorities. She said Republicans claim they believe in a second right to vote while denying the right to vote to an overwhelmingly black city and accusing Republicans of trying to meddle into the business of D.C. residents. I don't know what black has to do with illegal immigrants. AOC, are we shipping slaves back over here again from Africa? Is that what we're talking about? What are you talking about? How does the black race feel into this in any way, shape, or form? We'd like to know. If you're going to open your mouth and say something so freaking stupid, at least show us some kind of something that lines up with what you're saying. But you can't, because you're an idiot. And that's okay. You're at home with a whole bunch of idiots up in Washington, D.C., Republicans and Democrats. AOC added that while other cities around the country have allowed non-citizens to vote, Republicans are only calling on legislation dealing with Washington, D.C. They're singling out the residents of the District of Columbia and expanding in a history of disfranchisement that goes all the way back to the legacy of slavery, she argued. AOC erupted the Republicans last week before lawmakers passed a resolution that kicked Ilhan Omar off the House Foreign Affairs Committee by saying there is nothing consistent with the Republican Party continuing to attack except for racism and incitement of violence against women of color in this body, she said. Yes, my friends, you can smoke too much meth. The District of Columbia created in the Constitution as an area designated as the seat of the government of the United States. Congress has a unique authority under the District of Columbia Home Rule Act to reject laws passed by the D.C. Council, which is why lawmakers occasionally consider legislation affecting the district. In Wednesday's debate, Representative Lauren Boebert pointed out that authority on the House floor after AOC spoke. That's their job, AOC. That's your job, AOC. And you did make a point that I agree with. Why aren't Republicans talking about the other states that are doing the same fucking thing? Like Washington State and Oregon State and California. They're allowing illegal aliens to vote. Don't just call out Washington, D.C. Come on, let's call them all out. Congress has jurisdiction over D.C., and we need to ensure a vibrant capital city. GOP leaders have said Congress has an interest in making sure the district doesn't disfranchise U.S. citizens by allowing non-citizens to vote. And some said giving non-citizens this privilege will only make the immigration crisis worse. You think? House Majority Leader Steve Scalise said last week that the D.C. law sends the wrong message to those who are seeking to come into our country illegally. Republicans also noted that D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser refused to even sign the law. He's a Democrat. And that it was opposed by the Washington Post editorial board. Now, I know what probably 99.9% of you right now listening to this show are thinking. Illegal aliens do not have the right to vote in America. Our Constitution restricts them from being able to vote. So why is AOC thinks it's okay to go against our Constitution? Now, I'm going to be the first person to admit it. Drum roll, please. I actually thought that was fact. There are many things in the Constitution that I have not read the original Constitution per word. I've read interpretations of it. I've got copies of it. But when it comes to exactly what the Constitution, the original Constitution states, guess what, my friends? It's not in there. I'm sure that's a shocker to many of you, because it was to me when I started looking into what the fuck she was saying. Nowhere in the United States Constitution does it say only American citizens have the right to vote in America. So it is up to each state to make that decision. And an additional amendment should be written to enforce only U.S. citizens have the right to vote. That's what amendments are for. We have amendments in the Constitution for voting rights, for women, for blacks. We have amendments in the Constitution for all kinds of stuff. But the Constitution as written doesn't say that only Americans have that right, nor is there an amendment saying that. So I'm calling on Republicans that are now in control of the House that when you get the Senate back, make that an amendment and be done with this. Because no one should be allowed to vote in American politics unless they're born and raised here or they become an American citizen. Non-citizens and illegal aliens should not be allowed to vote in our elections. Now, I'm on record saying some things that aren't true when it comes to what the Constitution says. All my life, I've been told, I'm 60 years old. All my life, from Democrats and Republicans, I've been told that in order to vote in America, you have to be an American citizen. It's not there, my friends. I challenge you to go find it. It's not there. AOC, as dumb as she is, although I don't believe this has a damn thing to do with what she says, which is slavery, because that's not the point here. The point is illegal aliens or people that are not from America should not be allowed to vote in our elections. But certain states are allowing that to happen in certain areas of the country, like DC, for instance, California, for instance, Washington State. There are places run by Democrats and liberals that are allowing illegal aliens to vote. That's what the Democrats want to happen. That's why the border's wide open when they're in charge. This doesn't take rocket science to figure out. There is a reason behind their madness. And now, you know what that reason is. It is time, when Republicans have the House and Senate and 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, to put in a new amendment to the United States Constitution that says only American citizens have the right to vote in this country, period. End of discussion. That is a must. And it's something that I and you should be demanding when we have all three branches of government back. Folks, you had many places to be tonight. Chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. I hope that you will check out in the description of this video and all the videos I put out, different places you can find me on social media. Also, go check out DouglasDucote.com. And it's got some great information there. We've done some updates recently on the website. And there's a lot of good information there that you can find out about our country, as well as things that I've witnessed on the border and the documents or documentaries that I've done on the border that I believe are every American should see, whether you're a Republican or a conservative, a liberal, Democrat, doesn't matter. You should pay attention to that. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders and their families, our angel families, our blue and gold star families, and our country. If anything breaks between now and next Tuesday's show, I'll be sure to either put out a live show about it or put out a video about it. Other than that, Hope you all have a wonderful and blessed weekend. Thank you again for being here. And whatever you do this weekend coming up, please be safe. God bless you all, and thank you.